All right, welcome to Comedians and Elevators podcast. This is the first edition, and I've got my first guest, Matthew Blizzard, goes by Matt Blizz. Matt, say hi.
Hey
First
everyone.
question. First question, Matthew Blizzard or Matt Blizz? What's the give?
Well, I used to be in music, um, and I went by the name Blizz. Um, and then when I started doing comedy, I don't know, I just wanted something a little snazzier, and I like the two T's and the two Z's. It's kind of quick, Matt Blizz,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know, it's snappier. So
That's it. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Well, thank you for being my first guest. Just for everyone watching to understand where I'm coming from with this, comedians and elevators. Obviously, we're doing it virtual here, but it can also be in person too, right? And so in actual elevators. But so the idea is
that'd be fun.
that would be fun, right? This would also be like a casting tool, right? Using the MBTI, a quick way to kind of pair up actors, right? And so that's the second part of that. So our main theme here is the idea of the comic versus the comedian. Okay, so just to give a quick definition, a comic is a person that tells funny jokes, and a comedian is a funny person. So most people would say, well, we really need both, right? And the answer I would say is yes, right? But you gotta most of the time you're gonna lean on one towards the other. For example, in a when you're doing shows, the owner of the club or wherever you're working, they may not really care if you're a comedian. They just want you to tell funny jokes. They want people to laugh, right? You don't need to be a comedian. You just need to be a comic, right? So there's this give and take. But if you're a big name or you want to be a big name, or there's obviously a direction where that matters, those are comedians. What do you think, Matt? Which one are you focused on more?
I'm definitely a comedian.
Okay. But you got to have
Um,
jokes. Otherwise, the ones, it's going to be pretty dry, right?
well, telling jokes is kind of a symptom of me being a comedian. Um, Most of the comedy that I do is based on my actual life. It's very authentic to me. Um, and one of the reasons why I even decided to be a comedian or a comic is because I noticed how well I could grab a group of people's attention and have them laughing at a story. And I knew that if I could replicate that, then I could be good at this. And I was right.
So that's
So,
a great point. So it's really so I mean I've looked at some of your stuff online. They are jokes. I mean, you are hitting punchlines, right? So the
oh, yeah.
story the story right, the stories have a punchline arc, which I think is I mean it's really on point, right? But then it gets into the balance of how long can you go, right? You can have a tight five of just jokes, but now if you're going to go further than that, your tight five of the same repeating jokes that are funny kind of gets boring, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah. Yeah.
exactly to the audience, right? So how do you need to be a character, otherwise you won't have that throughput. They're just hearing more, even if they're good original jokes, which does get harder over time if you don't have a character. So
Yeah,
let
that's
me. Huh?
that's one of the that's kind of one of the catch 22s of being a new up and coming comedian is you have to get on stage so much to really get good at it. And when
Mm-hmm.
you do that, you wind up doing your act in front of the same people a lot of times.
Okay.
So, in order to get a proper judgment from the crowd, you have to come up with new material. And that's something a lot of comics don't do in this area. They get up on stage, they do the same jokes over and over. And you do have to work on them. But I've made it a kind of a point to every time I get on a stage I've recently been on to come with new material.
So now I agree because I do stand up as well, and the question. So I run across the same exactly the same thing, right? If it's
Yeah.
maybe an open mic or if it's a show and you have repeating guests that come to your shows. Um, so oh my gosh, did I lose my own question? My own question really was is how do you is that more of a comic or a comedian at that point, right? When you're trying to come up with new material, is it, where is it coming from at that point when you need to see the same people, they know who your character is. So how are you really going to come up with new material?
Yeah, I agree. At that point, it's being a comic because at that point, it's not necessarily whether you have something funny to say, it's whether or not you have something to say that you can make funny.
Okay. So that you think that's the comic, not the comedian.
Yeah, because at that point it's more of a like, okay, if I'm writing a joke as a comedian, if I'm writing a story about my life and it's funny,
Uh-huh.
I'm a comedian. I'm just putting down something that happened to me that I view as funny and that other people view as funny.
Okay.
But once I start going in there and looking at the structure, changing words to make sure it does have actual punchlines, figuring out where my timing and my spacing is going to be, then that's being a comic. Because that I feel like the comedian writes the material and the comic edits it.
Okay. So you're saying that the comedian is really pulling off of a real life story and then not really changing it, but the comic comes in and changes that real life story into something more punchy.
Right.
Would you say? Okay. I mean, I agree. I think that's a good description of kind of the process. That's
Yeah.
if anyone's ever
I mean,
put
that's
any
my
of those.
process.
I think that's I think that's actually the process. I think everyone comes to that point. Once they start doing regular shows, is that's actually what starts happening, right? And you come up against that, like, what, is my life that interesting? You don't know anymore. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Second question: punching up versus punching down. Is the audience in agreement with the comedian as a form of permission or alignment? Right. So what are we doing there? Are we trying to be edgy, or are we trying to like get them on our side or antagonistic? Where do you fit in that?
Oh, I let's see. Having the audience on my side is not a major priority for me.
Okay.
Um, when I first started doing comedy, and say I had a joke that I felt like went better with a black crowd, but then when I got to the venue, it
Okay.
was mostly white people,
Okay.
I would have the tendency to want to change what I'm doing. Um, but now I don't do that. Now I say my joke regardless of what it is, and let the audience, if they like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. Um, but as far as being like edgy and punching down, I don't really punch down, but I do go dark.
Okay.
Um, I mean, for instance, I have a joke about this lady that killed her two children, and I make a punchline about, well, what else you gonna do? The babysitter canceled the last minute.
That's good.
You
Yeah.
know, so
I don't know. Is that punching down?
I
No.
don't know. I
Yeah. I
don't
mean,
punch down, but I'll get dark.
no, that's good. That's funny. No, that's good. That's good.
um, but
It's
no,
hard. It's hard to
I
find
don't.
tags off of that one, right? This is going to go
Yeah.
deeper and deeper,
But
right?
yeah,
I
there is
don't.
a tag. There is a tag for that one. After that part, it says, I mean, if you ever tried to get a refund back from an Airbnb, it's a lot harder than digging a couple holes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good.
And
I like that.
I don't normally get a laugh, but I usually get a reaction, and that's just as good.
No, that's good. Yeah. No, it definitely keeps the energy. Does it keep it
Yeah.
high? I don't know. It keeps it moving. That's for sure. So I got question number three, which is kind of, you already kind of answered it, or cultural translation of comedy, right? How do jokes that work in one place bomb in another, right? And so you kind of addressed it. So how are more universal so here's the question: are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
That's an individual thing. I mean, you know, you take somebody like Kevin Hart. Um, Most of the jokes that Kevin Hart does is from his life, and he grew up in a black culture. But white, black, Chinese, when you hear his jokes, it's funny, you know, um, just because he makes sure you understand what he understands.
Right.
And I think
Because
that's
he's
the
in
biggest
pain,
difference.
right?
Huh?
Because he's in pain. I mean, he's one of those that you can study, right? His whole persona is that he's in pain, right? And so you kind of identify with that as a common theme. Would you agree?
Right, right, exactly. And I think um, I've got some jokes that might be culturally, for me, but I make sure that when I tell them, they have enough context to where anybody can understand why it's funny.
Right.
But there are, I mean, I would say that that does happen. I mean, there's comedians that I think are hilarious that some of my comedian friends are like, no, they're not funny at all. You know, um,
Can you
but
name
I
one?
just,
Because I can think of one that a lot of people just don't understand his jokes at all, and I think they're actually like multidimensional.
well, I'm a big Dave Chappelle fan. I like Sebastian Maniscalco.
Okay,
I like Shane Gillis. I mean, I'm a person that kind of likes any comedians,
yeah,
um,
most of the
just
famous ones are
depending.
good.
But like, I'm not a big fan of Matt Rife.
Okay,
I don't like, I don't like Whitney Cummings. I'm not a fan
okay,
of hers. But,
okay. And you don't know
but
why,
yeah,
or do you know? Do you know why?
why I don't like Whitney Cummings.
Yeah, and Matt Rife, or if they're connected or
I
not.
feel like Whitney Cummings makes a lot of her jokes about attacking straight white men.
Okay, okay, duh. Yeah, that
Yeah.
doesn't.
So, and that doesn't like offend me or anything. I just think it gets
Yeah,
old.
yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, that doesn't evolve. Okay, she doesn't
And
evolve,
Matt,
and maybe once you stop paying attention, you know, maybe she has evolved.
yeah,
But
yeah. I'm
what
not
about
saying
Matt?
she's not funny. I just don't
Right.
care for her comedy. I don't really like her as a person either.
Her agenda is what you're not following with. You will
Yeah,
not agree. You will not agree, and you won't find it funny, or you may be funny, but you still don't like the agenda. Would you say
right.
that's
And I like plenty of female comedians. I like Chelsea Handler. I like Tiffany Haddish. Um, I like Nikki Glazer. Um, but yeah, that's I don't know, man. If a comedian if you don't make me laugh, like there's certain comedians who have jokes that I can listen to over and over again and still laugh. You know what I
right?
mean?
Yeah, exactly. The
Um,
same joke, even.
right. It's like
Yeah,
listening to a song. I know what's gonna happen, but it makes me laugh anyway because it's so
yeah.
ridiculous or whatever.
That one is
Uh,
good. You
yeah.
were gonna say Matt Rife, but I want to throw in question number four because I think it might go with this is crowd work versus crafted work, because what I think Matt Rife is doing. So I would say, at least in this question, is if comics riff, comedians perform. So where's the sweet spot? And that's in reference to Matt Rife.
You said comedians riff and comics perform.
Comics riff, comedians perform.
Okay.
If you
Um,
disagree with that, do you agree with that statement?
that makes sense because if you're a funny, most I've met plenty of comics that will not riff because they're not comfortable with it. They don't have the quick-witted thinking enough to do it.
Mhm.
So I would say, yeah, that's that. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. What about Matt Rife?
Um, I don't know, man. His crowd work is good, but it's not to me. It's not like hilarious enough to where it carries him like it does. I mean, I guess plenty of people do think that he's rich.
Which he didn't start, so he actually got there. But would you say that he's actually a textbook comic?
uh, no, I would probably say he's more of a comedian. Um,
But most of
because
his
it,
work is crowd work.
huh?
His most of his work is crowd work. Would you agree?
You said comics perform and comedian. What? How did you say
No,
it?
the other way. It could almost, it's almost arbitrary which one, but I do believe that I also believe comics riff, right? They
Uh,
have, and I know it sounds like it's a performance, right? And comedians perform, but comedians perform fixed material, right?
okay.
They don't really go.
I would say that. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I would definitely say Matt Rife is the comic. I mean, because that's his meat and potatoes, his crowd work.
Exactly.
You know,
I,
but
I'm
then
not trying to
you
stick
take
things into boxes, but sometimes it helps to kind of like,
no. Yeah. Well, then you take somebody like Big J Okerson, um, who has great jokes, but recently did an entire special of nothing but crowd work,
mm,
and it was super hilarious. And I like Big J Okerson. He's more along my type of person, but so maybe I'm biased. But
Right.
um, I just feel like these days, whether you're a comic or a comedian, if it's a career choice, you need to be very versatile.
Right.
You know, um, that's something I've been practicing on. Like tonight, I actually have a show I'm going to do that's got to be clean comedy. I'm
Mhm.
not a clean comedian.
Well,
You know,
the dark tends to almost not be clean by definition, even if it's not using swear words or it's sexual, right? Just being dark, right? Do you get that criticism? Is it too dark and therefore not clean?
no,
Okay.
no. The only time that I've ever gotten any criticism is if maybe I tell a story about drugs
Okay. Drugs.
or I mention sex, even if I don't say any curse words, if I mention something about sex.
Right.
But I've gotten I've gotten pretty good at being able to tell a joke without cursing and still make it funny.
You know what's funny? This is leading into question number five. It's almost like you're psychic there, right? So number five topic: censorship versus offense or being offensive. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point?
Mm, I don't think it matters which one. When it comes to offending people or being offensive, I just look at one formula. Is it funnier than it is offensive?
Okay.
You know what I mean? The way I look at it is, you ever seen somebody laugh at something and they grab their mouth like they shouldn't have been laughing at it?
Okay.
That's the
Yeah.
reaction I'm looking for. You know what I mean? When I say an offensive joke.
Okay.
Um, but I
Hmm.
would say, I don't know. I'd probably say a comedian is quicker to be offensive because they're just flowing with the funny, whereas a comic is paying more attention to the joke structure.
Right. But you also have to, yeah, it's a fine line if you're actually trying to dance across between, just being more funny with something offensive, right? So your base is offensive, but you want to make sure that what you build on is funnier than the base, which is offensive,
Right.
right? I think you have
Yeah.
to structure that, right? It may not have come from a structure, right, to find that thing, but to reproduce it, you got to have it on point. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? And then you're going to be in trouble.
Well, in my experience with a joke like that, you want to build tension and
Okay. Build tension first before you even
well,
get to it.
build tension before you hit them with the punchline, whatever it is.
Right.
And the way I do that is with timing. Something I actually get a lot of compliments on in these competitions is my timing. Um, I know how to draw the crowd in, make them really excited about what I'm about to say next, and then let it go. And to me, that build it's like you're building up potential energy and then you're letting it go. And if I do a joke that's offensive, let's say it starts off offensive, like I'm just making some shit up. So like what if I just started a joke and said, the funny thing about Hitler, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And there's nothing funny about Hitler, you know what I mean? And but whatever the joke is, I slowly build up to it, and then right before the punchline, I kind of have them all, because even if they're offended, they're paying attention to what you're saying, so
Right.
you
So
got their attention.
that's a good tool because you haven't actually offended anybody yet, right? Just the fact the content, right? The subject matter is offensive, supposedly offensive
It-
before anything's even happened, right? You don't
right,
even
you're
know it's
going
about
that
that.
direction. Yeah,
Right, right. You don't even know where you're going to go. What the surprise is going to come up. Now,
right.
I know, just so everyone knows, I did email Matt the questions I was going to ask, but I'm curious if you read them because you're answering the next one in order every time before I even ask
I
it.
guess
No, it's a good thing. The reason
I
why,
just
so
really
because
glanced over them.
no, I'm wondering because I'll be honest, I had ChatGPT help me with the questions, and I think it's conscious, and I think it's actually figured something out here, like the timing of even this podcast. I say I'm putting together a podcast. Here's what I want to talk about. Can you give me some questions that are good? And this is what it came up with. And so far, I think they're pretty damn on point. So number six, it's crazy, right? Number six, timing and delivery. Is it a science or an art? Do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Um, Timing's a science and an art. It's I like to compare it to magic, is what I like to compare it to. But
All right.
well, because when your timing is just right and you deliver a joke, you create an emotion in someone that's uncontrollable. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's what you're looking for. You want to make somebody laugh without them being able to stop it. You know, I mean, that sounds kind of crazy, but that's what you're looking for.
Yep. Yeah.
And I feel like with timing, because I've used timing before, and I went too slow and I went too fast. So it's a science and an art. It's kind of like trying to think of something I could compare it to. Uh, well, kind of like anything that you have to practice at, like a musical instrument. A musical instrument is both art and science. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
You create sound through this instrument that's science, but you make it sound great with art. You know what I mean? With your creativity. And that's what I think timing is figuring out that sweet spot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And once you find it, you can recreate it in a logical way. You know what I mean? Because you start being able to pick it out whenever you're on stage and you can see it. At least I can. And but that's one of my biggest tools in comedy is timing.
Awesome. So that, I mean, again, this leads right into number seven, laughter versus applause. Are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
Um, I mean, I think everybody wants that applause, man. That's the
For a
crown
comedian,
jewel.
applause over laughter?
Well, I don't know.
But no,
Well,
you really believe that.
what you want is applause. What you want is laughter and then applause. That's what you want.
Okay.
that, that's what I want.
Got
Um,
it. So it's like the applause is the a cherry on top. Like they laugh because it's funny, and then they're like, "Oh shit, that's actually really good too."
well, it's like the other night I dealt with a heckler. Well, it wasn't really a heckler. It was somebody talking really loud during my set, and I didn't say anything funny. All I said was, "You better pay attention," because how'd I say? I said, "You better pay attention because you're gonna have to pay a premium to hear this shit sooner or later."
Okay.
Um,
What were
and
they
I didn't get
heckling
a
about?
laugh, but everybody fucking started clapping.
Right. Yeah.
And that felt pretty good.
Well, what was he heckling over?
Oh, they weren't heckling, man. They were just talking really loud,
Ah,
like at
okay.
their table. And
Got it.
I just stopped the show. I was like, "Are y'all paying attention?" And because I will. I mean, if you're talking during my show, I'm gonna call you out.
Yeah.
That's
If it's distracting, yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%.
I ain't gonna be an asshole, but I'm gonna talk to you.
Well, that's so goes to number eight, comedy as commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
That is kind of what I am, the path that I'm on.
Okay.
I didn't know this. Like, I started doing comedy just to do it. Actually, a girlfriend had broken up with me, and I thought I can't feel any worse, so I got on stage. Um,
Can I ask how
but
long ago that was?
3 years ago.
Okay. Awesome.
Um, but I did a contest that I won. My first contest I won. And I told a story about getting arrested with a friend of mine who was black, and they sent him to prison and let me go home. And that's the whole premise of the whole joke. And it's funny. It's one of my it's a joke that I know if I tell it'll kill like every time. It's perfectly polished, perfectly timed, just perfect. Um, and I told it, and the judges told me that the reason why I won was not only was I hilarious, but I brought something that was painful and serious and got them to laugh about it. And he compared me to Dave Chappelle, which when he did that, I was like, huh? But
Wow.
that's my idol. But when he said that, I was like, well, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. I've been locked up. I've been in a lot of trouble. I've dealt with drugs and mental illness. So, maybe I can do something that I enjoy like this and help other people kind of feel better about what they're going through. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking to do. That's and I think that would probably make you more of a comedian, just because you're being more authentic and what you're saying is you're making what you say funny, but it's just something natural you're talking about. It's your own beliefs. It's your own spin on life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's crazy because it does lead to number nine, comedy and vulnerability, right?
Oh
Do
yeah.
comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves?
Mm, no, I don't think so. I think that both will show vulnerability. I think that comics will act like they're not being vulnerable
Okay.
and kind of laugh like they'll like say they make a joke that shows vulnerability, but they'll laugh like the joke isn't real.
Okay.
Whereas a comedian will tell you something funny and then kind of agree with the audience through his body language that I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I'm a big sap. You know what I mean? Like
That's a
there'll
good
be
insight.
more,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that's how I am. Like I'm a big guy, I'm intimidating looking. So it doesn't do well for me to get on stage and have an ego. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to see a big muscled up white guy on stage trying to pretend like he's some kind of badass or anything else. They want to see a guy like me get up there and talk about the times I've done dumb stuff, or you know, things that show me as being vulnerable. And when I've done that, it's been my best sets.
Well, you know what? That leads us to our last question. Number 10, legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
Definitely a comedian,
Right.
because when you hear, a story that you relate to and you laugh at it, you carry that with you. If you hear, I mean, I can tell you plenty of times, like not too long ago, I was telling somebody, I was like, yeah, man, I did this show. There was this really funny comedian. He told this one joke. I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was funny, you know. And, but then you get somebody like, uh, well, I'll just say Dave Chappelle again. It tells these stories of struggles he went through. you know, I remember those stories. And sometimes I remember them in a way that's not like, oh, that's funny. I remember it in a way like I learned something from it. And that's what I want my comedy to be. You know, if for nothing else, because I got children and it'd be nice for them to see me putting some truth and, some positivity and some just helping type, helping people type of vibe into my comedy. And I feel like if I do that, I'll be remembered.
I can't disagree with that. Well, Matt, thank you for being my guest. You want to tell
Thanks for letting
everybody?
me be on here.
Absolutely. I think this turned out really well. I'm glad, and it looks like it's something that's going to do really well in the future. Is there anywhere you'd like everyone to find you online?
Oh, you can find me on TikTok at Matt Blizz Comedy and Matt Blizz Comedy too, because I can't get into my first account. I forgot the password.
Okay.
You can find me on YouTube at Matt Blizz Comedy. I think it's Matt Blizz Comedy 369 if you look up the
Yep.
address.
Yeah. With the at symbol, that's how I found you. It's good stuff. I think YouTube's the way to go. Keep going. Anywhere
And
else?
my Instagram is Matt Blizz Comedy. There's some stuff on there. And my Facebook is Matt Blizz because somebody hacked my Matt Blizz Comedy Facebook. So y'all can check me out on all of that. I try to keep videos on there. I try to keep content on there, and hope you enjoy it.
I certainly do. So I appreciate you being my guest, and everybody, thank you for watching the first episode of Comedians in Elevators, and stay tuned for the next one.